this is a lie. Everything we're seeing right here.
We won't tell anybody.
Did you know that every word you speak matters? Are your conversations making a difference? With a passion for words and a heart for conversation, Teresa Velardi is a self-professed word nerd, best-selling author, BizCat 360 columnist, and publisher. Children's books as well as fiction and nonfiction books are welcomed at We Be Books Publishing and Book Endeavors, the imprints of her company, Authentic Endeavors Publishing. Whether written or spoken, Teresa strives to encourage and inspire meaningful conversations that make a difference. Here's the host of Conversations That Make a Difference, Teresa Velardi.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations That Make a Difference. I'm happy to join you today with Rachelle Sweet, who's just still on her way home, and with Shannon Barker, who I'll introduce in just a minute. First, I want to say Conversations That Make a Difference goes live every first and third Tuesday of the month, right here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network at 5 p.m. You can listen to the replays every Tuesday, 5 a.m. or 5 p.m., except for when we do the live shows on the first and third. So this week I have the honor of these two ladies being on my show, and we're going to talk about their participation in a book called The Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness. We've had several authors on here before. And but before we get started, we're going to start with the serenity prayer, as we always do. So God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it is by God's grace that we are fabulous, blessed, and highly favored, living in our greatness, using our gifts and talents, making a difference in the lives of others with passion and purpose, and all of God's great universe is conspiring in our favor. And we gratefully say, amen. So amen to that. Yes. So let me introduce these beautiful ladies, these two redheads, fiery redheads, no less. So let's talk about Shannon Barker first. She's a Florida native who has always had a passion for health and fitness. Following that passion led her to become a registered dietitian, as well as earn a master's degree in exercise science. Shannon specializes in helping women reach their health and wellness goals through behavior modification, coaching, behavior modification coaching, yes, allowing the root cause of the health discrepancies to be identified and corrected. Excuse me, something wrong with the mouth today. Anyway, this mind, body, spirit approach to health has helped her clients break through health and weight plateaus and empowered these clients to live their healthiest life possible. And Shannon has a new website that you can visit. It's shannonbarker.com. That's BARKER.com. And welcome, Shannon.
So happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. And still en route home, we have, but true to her word that she's going to be on the show and be on time, we have Dr. Rachelle Sweet. She is a certified epigenetic health and wellness coach with a Ph.D. in neuropsychology. She works with clients to change their lifestyles through biological individuality and understanding genetics, using genetic blueprints and body biomarkers as a guide. She helps women design a plan to go from being fatigued, stressed, and not sleeping to having more energy and clarity so they can wake up with confidence and rock their day. Through visioning, clients discover new ways to look at challenges and are encouraged to experiment with new techniques to move them closer to becoming their best version. And you can find out more about Dr. Rachelle at Dr. Rachelle Sweet, SWEET.com. So, ladies, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. And I figured the two of you together is going to be a great pair because what you do complements each other so well. And I have worked with both of you and I have seen results. I've given up some of my rebel yell, let's say. That Shannon calls me her rebel, and I own that title. I own that title because I am a rebel. But I also have some great information that helps me that Dr. Rachel has been able to give me about the genetics. And we're all different. Our DNA is different. We're all different, and we all should know how so that we can modify foods, lifestyles in order to be able to live our best life. And we'll get into that a little bit as we go along here. But first, I want to pay attention to the stories that these ladies wrote in The Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness. Get your copy at Amazon. And they contributed stories to this book. And wellness is not just about going to the gym every day, right, Shannon?
Not at all.
Not at all.
I would agree with that, though.
Yes, thank you. So first thing I want to talk about is Shannon's story. Shannon, your story is called Poked and Prodded. And I love this quote that you have here. My biggest takeaway has been the importance of radical patient advocacy. If I do not receive the level of care or concern I require, I seek care from a different provider. Be an informed patient. And that goes for everybody. Shannon's story talks about a situation with her son, which I'll let her get into. And I'm just going to read a snippet from her story, but I will give you a little bit of background. She made the decision to have him get a very popular vaccine and felt confident in doing so. And then this happened. Mom, I'm on fire. My nerves are shooting pain impulses all over his nerves were shooting pain impulses all over his body. Even the gentle breeze of the air conditioner kicked on, brought him to tears with searing pain. As if it was bad enough, his legs became so weak that within a week of the shot, he could no longer be supported. The once friendly, charming doctor became defensive and dismissive when I returned with a now wheelchair-bound child. Imagine that. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks from getting the shot. A vaccine could never have done this, she stated, as we were escorted out of the office so other patients wouldn't see my suffering child. This was the first experience when the medical community was marginalized when he didn't fit the mold. For years, he bounced from one medical office to another, each providing a diagnosis that fit their agenda, each not addressing his actual physical state. I watched my son wither away, both physically and spiritually. And multiple medical professionals invalidated his experience and condition. His body became his personal prison. I can't even imagine as a mother going through this, let alone this young man. What was he, about 12 or 13 at the time? This young boy
Started at 12. Yep.
Yeah, being in a wheelchair after having gotten a highly recommended vaccine. Let's not go into how I feel about all this stuff, but we need to stick to the story here. One particularly offensive dismissal was when a highly regarded doctor asked my son while he was wincing in pain during a physical act, "Do you believe in God? What do you need to repent for so you will stop all this suffering?" We left the office and never looked back. When we reached the parking lot, I texted my husband about the event and he replied to this fiery redhead. That's my input there. "Are you in the back of a police car now? Do you need bail money?" That would be me. That would be me. Shannon, talk a little bit about what you went through with your son, both as a mother and you are a well-educated professional. Let's talk about how this affected you as a mother and what you actually did. You actually changed your entire life to save your son, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think the first realization I had to make was that I was not being heard And I think a lot of us kind of kowtow to medical professionals because of the amount of education they have. At that point in time, I had one degree, ironically, from the institute that I was seeking treatment at. And I was completely just dismissed, as if being a mother meant that all of my personal attributes for intelligence and ability to observe my child and make rational choices were completely dismissed. And I have the evidence of that in his medical records when I finally got a copy of all of them. It's like, oh, mother has some experience in nutrition. When my first bachelor's was a bachelor's of science in human nutrition and food science from that institution. So I learned that the system was really working against me, and who I thought were going to be my partners in health for my son were not. And so I had to get real confident to start firing people and expanding our bubble and finding real help for him. So that was hard. The other thing that was hard is just, you have to just have a tenacious spirit. The continuation of the story talks about how I was up in prayer one night, sitting outside of his bedroom door, because I literally thought he was going to die that night. It was that bad. I was that scared. And God laid it upon my heart to call the Mayo Clinic. And I called as just a mom. Nobody else helped me, no medical professional, nothing. And I just looked up a website and started calling numbers until somebody was like, hey, I want to hear a little more. And by the end of that day, I did a interview with a panel of 4 doctors. And they said, okay, we'll take him as a patient. You got to wait 6 months. That's our first opening, but we'll take him. And that was like the first time that I realized that the only reason he had that opportunity and that chance was because I was his mom. And if he had somebody else as his mom, he might not have made it to this point. And just for those listening, he is 21 and a half, is walking, and is amazing. He is a miracle.
That's awesome.
So,
And this speaks to advocacy, not only as a patient, but as the primary caregiver for someone who is potentially a patient, in your case, your child. He doesn't have any idea how to handle this. He's in the middle of whatever is going on in his body and can't get out of, well said, this personal prison that he was in, because he couldn't do what he normally would do. And I think that today, especially because there's so many things that are dismissed by the medical community, that you need to really do your research and you really need to advocate for yourself. And like you said, you went forth as a mom, not as a professional woman who had information. Do you think it would have made a difference if you went at them with, well, I know this and I know that? Do you think it would have made a difference? Because I think the conversation that people need to have needs to be framed in a way that we're open to hearing what they say, yet at the same time having those little notes on the post-it notes in the back of our head, right?
I think for me, one of the things I quickly learned in dealing with the medical community in order to have a better standing with them when I'm in those appointments was to use their language, speak their language, communicate as they communicate, because that helps them kind of see you as, I hate to say more of an equal, but just not to be so dismissive. We do have some concepts in society of that, education trumps all. And so if somebody is highly educated, as doctors are, sometimes it can be hard for them to actually hear what somebody's saying and hear the clues in what they're telling them as a patient, and just really get into that cookie cutter kind of diagnosis situation that we were stuck in. And so, like when I was at the Mayo Clinic, you're in appointments. If you've ever been there, it's like all day. Like you just go from one doc to the next doc. It's very intensive, but it's wonderful. But at the end of the day, I would have all these things that they've told me, and I literally spent almost all night reading papers on it, trying to learn the jargon, trying to understand it. So the next day, I could then have the next conversation and have an intelligent conversation. And that was hard. And so that's really what prompted me to go back. I went back to school in my early 40s and got 3 more college degrees, including a master's in 3.5 years. I don't recommend anyone doing that, but I really wanted to be involved in the community so that I could be a good and open ear for people who have not been heard, who have not been listened to. And because I know what it's like. I know how frustrating it is to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Both as a mom and as a professional. I think yeah. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but let's go over to Rachelle Sweet, Dr. Rachelle Simpson Sweet. I love your story, this title of your story, The Dance of the Sugar Plump with P Fairy. I want to read your quote as well. Food producers continually develop new ways to package sugar and processed ingredients that cause cravings. However, I'm diligent in my self-correction. I continue to make healthy choices each day. I have the power. Yeah. So you get a chance to make the decisions and not have whatever's in the ingredient list. I love it when don't you love, I'm gonna ask this question. When they came out with these no sugar added things like pound cake, I remember Entenmann's put out a whole line of things that were they were supposed to be low fat and better for you and whatnot. And what did they put in them in the meantime? High fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
Why don't you just inject me and kill my insulin resistance? Cause my insulin resistance. Anyway, I so relate to your story. So when I read this, when I read it, I'm reading it for both of us. Okay. So there we go.
Okay.
All right. So being an overweight teen in school was difficult. I had no boyfriends. Bullies called me Space Cow. I dressed differently and hung out with a different crowd who accepted me and didn't judge me by my weight. Though they accepted me for who I was, deep down, I didn't. So the diets continued. As a teen, exercise was excruciating. I hated it. I hated the way my body felt. It jiggled. It was slow. I didn't feel good. Got sweaty and rashes broke out from my skin rubbing. I couldn't keep up with the others, and no one wanted me on their team. In fact, the only time my mother was called to the principal's office in high school was because I skipped phys ed. The irony is that years later, I find out I have genetics very similar to athletes who excel at power and sprint-based activities. Who knew? I had my genetic son, and I was shocked when she told me the same thing about me. So hello, just to interject there. In my early 20s, I had a brief stint of success. For 18 months, I ate fish, vegetables, yogurt, and fruit every day and rode 11 miles on my stationary bike. Just me and my Madonna mixtape in the garage, grinding it out. Grinding down to a size 9 was the smallest size I remember wearing. It felt good, but after 18 months of restriction, it broke me emotionally, and the cookie jar and the sugar tooth genes were feeling neglected. The feeling of deprivation grew. In order to soothe my emotions and make myself feel better, I went back to my comfort foods and vowed never to diet again. Such restrictive diets are not sustainable and emotionally taxing. Anybody who's listening to this, if you've ever experienced that, raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Yeah, of course.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me. Tell me what it was that actually down the line stopped this behavior and gave you what you needed in order to be able to live a now healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it took a long time to get there. It was definitely a process, and every time like I did a diet or tried a new thing, like and failed ultimately. I just got to a point where it was like, okay, this is insane, and there has to be a different way. And I just kind of said, well, I'm not going to go about losing weight anymore. It was always about losing weight, losing the pounds, right? Like looking at the scale. In fact, there's a lot of times where, and I'm sure people can relate to this, you get on the scale and it's instant depression, right? Like you just want to crawl up into a ball and like, I'm not going out for the rest of the day. But it's only a number, right? But it's so hard to live that way, psychologically, even think positive about yourself if that's how you're living. And so it just came to me like one day that I just have to stop that. Like I can't keep living this way, and let's make it about being healthy. What can I do to be healthy and not focus on the number on the scale, not focus on the size dress or whatever it was, not focus on that. What can I do to make myself feel better and move in the direction of health? And just having that realization and that shift cognitively, the weight was a byproduct of it coming off, like it happened because I started to look at things a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think both of you had the same mindset in terms of this whole thing, and I get the scale thing. Okay. And this fiery redhead on the other side over here will tell you, oh, it's just data.
Yeah.
It's just data. It's just data, it's nothing. And I believe, I know that in my mind, I know that, but the emotional attachment to it is where I think many of us who struggle in this area of wellness and health and wellness, and particularly with lowering body weight, I think that creates a huge roadblock for us to get past. When you step on the scale and you see that number, it's like, oh Lord. And then I start calculating how many turkeys is that? How many actually, you go into that place and it like, all it does is spiral you down. So,
And I used to dread like at school, when they did like the phys ed exam and they would measure you and weigh you. I would dread that, or going to the doctor's office and they wanted to weigh you all the time, and then they start in on this like, you've got to lose weight and you've got to eat this way and you've got to exercise, and I'm like, yeah, okay, if you haven't lived my life. And it gets really frustrating because you just feel like I should say I felt like all the time, like I'm just getting this, well, you've got to like, cut your calories and move more, but it's not that simple. There is an equation, right? Calories in, calories out. I get it, but that doesn't work quite the way that everybody thinks it does.
Exactly.
It's more of an algebraic calculation than a simple math, addition and subtraction. And there are certainly, we've looked at some genetic data too, like when we're looking more at like longevity and people's aging, rates of aging, that there are people who do not respond to a calorie deficit in the same way that other people do.
And we're all different. Everything that you're saying points to that. We're all different. And we're going to come back and talk about that a little bit more. We have to take a break. So when we return, we're going to talk about how it's not cookie cutter for everybody on getting well, whether we're talking about weight loss or any other thing that you have going on in your life. These two women are highly educated and speak about their own personal journeys in fourfold formula for all things wellness. We'll be right back.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe-Canavis, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Are miracles real? Can you move from mayhem to miracles? 30 prominent authors say yes as they share their high fives and down lows of challenges, abuse, addiction, and love. Experience hope, the magic elixir of miracles, through the personal stories of New York Times bestselling authors James Redfield, Dr. Bernie Siegel, Sister Jenna, Reverend Temple Hayes, and many more. If you like bestsellers, chaos to clarity, and crappy to happy, you'll love crying and laughing through mayhem to miracles. Sacred stories of transformational hope. Available now on Amazon and in bookstores worldwide.
Did you know that every word you speak matters? What you say and how you say it can make or break a relationship or shift the outcome of any situation. Are your conversations making a difference? Faith in God, gratitude, authenticity, and giving are Teresa Velardi's heart. It's in this spirit that she's focused on making a difference in the lives she's blessed to touch. Conversations That Make a Difference is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Tuesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time, with live call-in shows every first and third Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Omega Institute, offering workshops, retreats, and online learning dedicated to awakening the best in the human spirit. For over 40 years, Omega has seen more than 1 million people come through its doors to grow, learn, and find a greater sense of purpose. With over 350 workshops to choose from, Omega offers something for everyone. Located in Rhinebeck, New York, just 90 miles north of New York City, Omega's natural environment and quiet pace allow for extraordinary experiences to unfold. Learn more at eomega.org or call 877-944-2002. Again, 877-944-2002.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
I love that. I missed it. We didn't have it for a couple of weeks. So let life flow, girls. Let life flow. Relax. Breathe. I love it. Okay, so before we went to the break, we were talking to Dr. Rachelle Sweet about her story in the fourfold formula and how, this sugar plump fairy has made her way into a different life, if you will, than she had when she was younger. And I shared that I so relate, because this is a struggle that I have has been ongoing. And we have so many landmark events that have happened in our lives, and I relate to them so much. And so why did you choose, Rachel, to bring your story to the world in the fourfold formula?
Yeah, so I was trying to think of the quote that someone said to me once, but it's kind of along the lines of like, your mess is your message. And this has been my mess for such a long time. It's like when, I was talking about when we go to the doctors and they weigh you and they kind of say, oh, your ideal weight is, right? And the thing is, like, I have to say, like, I haven't seen that ideal weight since I was probably like 8 years old, right? So this has been like, a lifelong thing for me, this struggle. And I know, like, in talking with you, you've had the same lifelong struggle. And so I just feel like there's people out there who have, from a very young age, from being a child, young child, had weight issues and have had some of the same experiences that I've had, and feel maybe like they just have to accept where they are, and they kind of do, but they don't have to live that way. They accept themselves, but they can still make that difference. But it doesn't have to be as crazy as some of this, the diet industry, diet culture makes it. And so I thought, it was kind of cathartic for me. I didn't realize how cathartic it was going to be, and in writing it. But yeah, it had some catharsis in it, but it was also really just because I felt, someone else could relate to it and maybe get some hope from it, that they could still be healthy. And, if they're staring down the face of a chronic disease, that they could still probably change that.
That's awesome. And I think that, your message, your mess is your message. Exactly. That's true. And I often say, when people say to me, well, I'm afraid, why should I put myself out there like that? And I'm the first one to tell you that it took me a long time to put myself out there. But you know what, if we have gotten through, if we have gotten through a certain situation, had triumphed over any of the lessons that we've learned along this journey called life, I feel like it's our obligation to share that with the next person who may not have a way to get through whatever it is that they're going through. And that we can, it's like when you climb to the top of the mountain and there's somebody behind you, you offer them a hand up. And that's exactly what I think telling our stories does. Would you agree, Shannon?
Absolutely. And I'm really big on being vulnerable, having vulnerability when we're talking about health. Like, Rachel was saying about, you go to the doctor and you get weighed and there's all that, and they make that their focus. And then it doesn't allow you to actually open up and say, this is my experience. This is, what I'm going through. Because we all cognitively have heard society's message about move more, eat less, and all that. That's clearly not the problem.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's not an information shortage, but it is a human-to-human connection shortage, I think, for sure. And the only way to do that is for us to be open and talk. So, and as you know, I'll tell anybody anything about my story, because I know how lonely it is when you feel like you're the only person in the world dealing with a particular situation.
Yeah.
And so, and I can already I have not met Rachel before, but I can already tell we're very aligned in many of our philosophies.
Very aligned.
So
Absolutely.
I am thrilled to be here with you.
No,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
I believe that there's a future for the two of you girls working together. So, I mean, just saying, because, and I know that, Shannon, this situation that you went through with your son, I have to say, it's not just stuff that we go through our own self, their own personal experiences. It's the relationships that we have around us. And as other people are going through, many of us are empaths, and it's one of you can define an empath for me. Shannon, you can design it. But in that saying that, we feel all the things that the people around us feel, and we end up using the same behaviors that we were using if it was something that we were personally going through. Like me, I don't know about you, but I have to keep ice cream out of my house because it talks to me.
Me too. It talks to me. It does. I know. I can hear it calling.
Yeah, it calls me, Teresa.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm a favorite girl, so it's the nachos and that kind of stuff. I can walk past a cookie, but I can't walk past nachos.
Right, there you go. But talk about how the empath in each one of us gets triggered by stuff that's going on with other people around us. You probably what was it like for you going through the situation with your son, having to be his advocate and emotionally feeling as a mother what you were going through, which you allude to? Read these stories, people. Get this book, because this is life-changing stuff we're talking about here. How did you get through it without?
It was hard. And it was also hard because, my husband traveled for work. So I was mostly a single parent, and we had another younger child. And so for me, the emotions were definitely strong, and I'm very bonded to my son and have been since he was born. Like, he's just kind of, mama's boy in a lot of ways, but I had to learn how to use the emotions to fuel the problem solving actions I had to take. So for instance, I had, there was a program they wanted to put him in that was going to be this intensive PT program. It had amazing results, except I'd have to move 2 hours away. It was 10 weeks long and like $8,000 a week. Obviously, that was a major roadblock. And emotionally, I was devastated because you want to give your child the world. So I went and met with the doctor, learned the ins and outs, went and got my certification in basically exercise rehab. And I went on Craigslist and everywhere else and bought every piece of equipment I needed. And I have a beautiful gym in my house, and my husband and I did the work. And so a lot of times I think what happens is the emotions are so overwhelming that it keeps them stuck. and they can't break past that barrier. And there's always a creative way to handle a problem. There's always some kind of solution. Sometimes you have to crowd think it. That's why I have people like you in my life, that I can say, hey, I can't wrap my brain around this. Give me another way to look at it. But the emotions are important because they keep us human and they keep us wanting to do these things, but we just have to learn how to balance them to be fuel to take that action. So people thought I was crazy at the time with all the things that we did and whatnot, but I have a child who's A, alive, B, is walking. He's at work right now, and he helps carry very heavy things at work. So, and when I started that journey to Mayo, he was 77 pounds at 15 years old.
Oh my Lord.
We were supposed to be there 5 days. He was so sick, they wouldn't let him fly home for 11 days. And then we had to bring him back 30 days later after he had washed out from the meds that he'd previously been on. So, I mean, I've seen the whole, spectrum with that. So, but yeah, as an empath, I think empaths are the perfect people to be in healthcare.
Yeah.
Because when somebody comes and talks to me, I feel their heart and I tell them it's okay. It's not that you're a failure. It's that we haven't figured out, what your internals, how they're processing this, what messages from childhood you're carrying with you that are affecting your relationship with food. There's so much more than just here's a diet plan, here's a workout, make it happen. I literally had a coach after I was diagnosed with Addison's disease. For those of you who don't know, that means your immune system killed your adrenals. I don't make cortisol. I have to take it. Cortisol loves to put fat on your body. I went from being an athlete to being 45 pounds overweight in 2 months. Wow. I signed up with a trainer, did everything she said. I'm super type A. Teresa will tell you that. Did everything to the dot, to the letter, and gained weight. And so then she gave me a dress down and told me I obviously was cheating on the plan and all this stuff. And it just completely crushed me.
Yeah.
So,
and that's exactly what Rachel was saying earlier. Like it could be this, it could work for somebody else, but your genetics are different than somebody else's. And it could backfire on you, as what Shannon was just talking about. Right, Rachel?
Right. I mean, cortisol is one of the drivers of adipose tissue, if you like. And so, I mean, right there, you're up against a battle, right? Because you've got to balance those hormones. And no matter, there's a switch in your body where you're either, releasing fat and burning fat, or you are storing fat. And that's all relied on by a series of chemicals and hormones in your body. And if those are not in alignment, then it doesn't matter what you do. You can be storing fat. And that's the challenge, is that, a lot of these diet plans, they're great for the first couple of weeks because people are kind of detoxing and shedding water and things like that's in their system, but it's really still not getting to the adipose tissue yet. And then they start to hit the plateaus or things aren't working, and that's what begins this cycle. And you've really got to look at what is going on in the body as far as those hormones and your biomarkers. What is your blood saying, like your hormones? It's a little bit more than just you're not doing the work.
Absolutely. Hormones are a huge part of what I counsel people on. Yeah. Because I tell them, I was like, it makes things so much harder. It's like trying to ride a bicycle with flat tires. You can't do it, and you're going to expend all this energy and not get anywhere, and then feel like it's that you're just not giving enough effort, when it's that you've got internal biological processes working against you. And every diet cycle you go through, you set yourself up to put on even more adipose tissue. So
there you go.
And that's the thing is, like, every time you do a restriction, and this is, something I learned along the way, is every time you do a restriction, your body goes, well, wait a second, we're like not getting enough food. We need to lower the metabolic rate here, right? So now it reduces your metabolic rate, and now you're starting at an even lower. So next time you go on a diet, you got to go even lower. Yeah. And then it gets to a point where your body goes, well, I don't care how much you reduce. I'm not budging because I got to preserve myself here. You know, the body has a mechanism that says, I need to survive at all costs. And if you go at it by restricting the food, it goes, whoa, no, that's what could kill me. So I'm holding on to everything. It doesn't take into account that, like, okay, we have all this extra energy on our body. It doesn't, it goes by what we call the leptin signal. And so if your body is used to, if you're like I was 300 pounds and it's used to having that leptin signal that says, we're good at 300 pounds. The minute you start to reduce it, it goes, wait a second, you've lost 20 pounds. My leptin signal is going down. We must be starving. Let's eat. Let's put the hunger drive in. Because it doesn't take into account the weight. It just goes by the hormone signaling. And that's what you're playing with when you do the diet cycle.
Yeah. And when you get to be like me, well, I'm postmenopausal. I got thrown into menopause when I had to have a complete hysterectomy. On my 50th birthday, I was on the operating table. Anyway, you get into the hormones that wreak havoc on the body of women as they go through menopause. Now we have another factor added in, and we're going to talk about that a little bit when we come back from the next break. We're right on time with our breaks, but yeah, I'm really excited to have these two women talking about this. You want to read their stories in the Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness. Get your copy on Amazon today. We'll be right back.
When you think about being healthy and happy, do you consider the 24 areas of your life? Probably not. With the All Things Wellness Wheel, you become self-empowered, allowing you to make healthier decisions about relationships, nutrition, sleep, exercise, stress, and even your value system. The All Things Wellness book series, written by Peggy Wilms and Dr. Marcus Bettstein, teaches about the ATW wheel and brings dozens of true and personal stories from real people. The first of these multi-author books, The Fourfold Formula, features the foreword written by the Celestine Prophecy author, nutrition, sleep, exercise, James Redfield, and even your value system. Field and is now available on Amazon. Reserve your spot now to become a published author in Book 2, Win the Wellness War, We Are Responsible. Visit allthingswellness.com/author for more information.
In a world facing annihilation, a miraculous African nun rises to become the first female pope through a web of war, murder, and betrayal. Loved by some, hated by many, she becomes the deadly target of Islamic terrorists and her own cardinals as she introduces a new vision that will either save humanity or accelerate its destruction. 4 people must race against a nuclear holocaust to learn her astonishing secret. Pope Annalisa is available at petercanova.com, Amazon, and other online booksellers and bookstores worldwide.
Did you know that every word you speak matters? What you say and how you say it can make or break a relationship or shift the outcome of any situation. Are your conversations making a difference? Faith in God, gratitude, authenticity, and giving are Teresa Velardi's heart. It's in this spirit that she's focused on making a difference in the lives she's blessed to touch. Conversations That Make a Difference is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Tuesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time, with live call-in shows every first and third Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Why are we here? How can we be happy? Questions asked from millennials to boomers. Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy answers them using true stories of grit, grace, and love. James Redfield, author of the Celestine Prophecy, wrote in the foreword, "This book is a seminar about emerging truths and offers grounded solutions through the art of the comeback." Dr. Bernie Siegel, a contributing author, wrote, "Bodies die, but spirits and consciousness survive and recycle." So, grab some tissues, open your book, and prepare to cry and laugh till it heals. Crappy to Happy by Reverend Ariel Patricia and Kathleen O'Keefe Cannabis. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and booksellers worldwide.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back with Shannon Barker and Dr. Rachelle Sweet. I am so excited. This time is flying by. We only have 15 minutes left. So, and there's so many things I want to ask you. The hormone thing. I'm going to ask you to, first, Dr. Rachelle, would you please give me 2 things that women need to know or women can do in order to be able to get through menopause? I don't know if there's such a thing of getting through menopause with sanity, but have a better menopausal experience. Let's talk about that. 2 things that people can do.
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is, each person experiences menopause differently than others. So if sometimes they experience it is not too, they don't have too many symptoms of it, especially if they're going through it naturally. Other people who have had hysterectomies get like kind of that sudden onset of like, hey, no estrogen, here we go. And it can be quite brutal. And so the first thing I would say is get your hormones tested to see what is going on. And one of the things I will say is that even if it's in the like normal range, normal is not necessarily optimal, because obviously they have markers that say like, well, you're lower estrogen and you're this age and what have you. So that's normal, but that's not necessarily optimal. It doesn't make us feel good. So I would find someone who can look at your hormone levels and see if there's something supplementing wise, or even hormone replacement therapy, if that's, recommended for you, because that can go a long way to helping you feel better. The other thing is self-care. As women and carers, we don't usually care about ourselves too much, and we don't put ourselves first. But I once heard a quote that said, well, it's actually every time you go on an airplane, you hear it, right? Put your oxygen mask on first and then help others. So I'm a big proponent of, you can't, as a mother, as a teacher, as a woman in the society who's usually helping everybody else, you're not going to be able to help anybody else if you can't do that for yourself. So self-care becomes really important, to take the time, ground yourself, yoga, meditation, whatever that is, some kind of mindful practice, that you can feel good about yourself and just take care of who you are as a person.
Great stuff. Shannon, are there certain foods? I could have asked this to Dr. Rachelle too, but you, both of you are so well educated. And Shannon, you are a dietitian, so I'm going to ask you: are there certain foods that women should stay away from, or should maybe do their best to avoid as they go through? Are there certain things that will trigger menopausal episodes, if you will?
So that's kind of a sticky subject, because there's, I see Rachel's like, oh, glad I didn't get that question. I saw that face. I saw that face. One professional to another. So that is a very sticky subject. And the way that I choose to handle that with the women I work with is, because everybody's body reacts differently to different foods, I ask clients to use a notebook and do a food symptom journal. And a food journal, not saying like I had half a cup of strawberries today, but just like writing out the foods you had, roughly, like strawberries, this, that, and the other, but also writing your symptoms of that day: brain fog, grumpy, whatever. And then once we get enough data, we can look at it and say, you know what, every time you have this food, you have these symptoms. And, and I know there's wonderful blood tests and all those things out there, but your body will tell you more clearly than anything else what you need to get rid of. And amazingly, it's generally the things that we love the most. So my husband is allergic to milk, not lactose intolerant, like allergic to milk protein. And if he were to have free reign, he would have dairy everything and ice cream at every meal. So just because our body wants the things that we really shouldn't have sometimes. So I think that's another key point, is that a huge component of health is having that body awareness. Like, people get stuck thinking that this way that they feel is normal, and they don't ever think something's abnormal until they get really, really sick. And it's this concept of health continuum, and healthy isn't just being not critically sick or having the flu or a cold. Health is feeling like you have vitality, like you can do all the activities you want to do, that your mood is stable and good. And I think that's really important to focus on. And it ties in with that whole weight bias that we deal with in health, because anybody who is over a particular BMI in a certain doctor's eyes, when you go in, that's all the conversation is about. And then that is a complete lack of healthcare, because no matter what else you're trying to talk about, it's like, well, but first, you need to deal with this. And so that is a hard reality that we're trying to fix. It's a big topic in the dietetic professional community, healthy at any size. But so I am going to creatively avoid giving you a specific food.
Well, I've seen that right now. I see that. That's awesome. Well,
because you know what? People like checklists. People want checklists. They want you to say, these are the do's, these are the don'ts. As long as you're a good student and you do the do's and don't do the don'ts, everything will be wonderful. And it's just not true.
It's not true.
It's not
true.
And
you can do all the work, and you could still end up being in the same place that you were before you started. And that brings us to the conversation about the All Things Wellness Wheel, which is the reason that the fourfold formula happened, because it's not just about taking care of the body. It's body, mind, spirit, heart. You've got to have wellness in all areas before you can actually call yourself well. Just because you did the work doesn't mean you're not stuck emotionally. Doesn't mean that you're trying to get out of a bad relationship. Doesn't mean that you hate your job, whatever. I mean, you've got to put all this stuff together in order to be able to find a place where you can actually feel well. Correct?
Yeah. And once people have moved out of that like neutral spot and into true wellness, they're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea, that I could feel like this. Yeah. And I always remember a story my mom told about the first time she got glasses, and she was shocked that people could actually see the leaves on trees, like the individual leaves, she just thought everybody saw the world that way. And it's kind of how we see ourselves in our health. If you're always kind of experienced it one way and you've never moved into a healthier state, then you can't even conceptualize what you don't know.
Exactly. And that's why I think that the work that Dr. Rachel does, the epigenetics, and why don't you talk about exactly what epigenetics is? You're the expert. I'm going to listen to you.
Well, I was just wanting to follow on a little bit with what Shannon was saying, because and this is where the epigenetics come in, is our body does know what it wants. It has a blueprint that has been given to us from our ancestors, and like it or not, it's what it is. And we should really honor what that is. And a lot of the food items and things that people say, well, eat this if you want to lose weight, and don't eat that. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's true for you with your genetics. So, I think also the way that everybody is different. If we looked at 900 different profiles of people who are, let's say, overweight, right? We'll say overweight. And we looked at their genetics, they would all be different in different ways, slightly different, so this whole notion of one size fits all, it just isn't. It isn't real. It's not possible. There's generalisms, right? There's generalisms, but there's not individualism. And so when we look at the genetic blueprint, it's very easy. We do a swab, send it to the lab, and it comes back with the array of, and we look at thousands of different pieces of information, and we put that together. And it, depending on how much you want to look at or how little, we look at nutrition and sleep and environmental detox and your lecithin and hormones and your supplementation and things like that.
Yeah.
And so when we look at that, that's kind of the blueprint that you were given with, but your environment also now changes the gene, right? It doesn't change the gene, it changes what's on top of the gene, right?
Mhm.
So it kind of turns it on or it turns it off, and we can dial it up, we can dial it down. Some we can't really move, they just are that way. And obviously some genetic disorders are quite fixed. You can,
Mhm.
help in certain ways, but in other ways that you can't. But there are genes that are more movable in the epigenetics realm.
Mhm.
And with nutrition, with supplementation, things that you do in your environment, exercise, you can start to make those genes either turn on or turn off, depending
Mhm.
on what you want it to do for your genetics.
Right.
And through that, you can feel better. And a lot of times I think we go to wellness professionals and they say, oh, I know this was my grandmother. They said, oh, well, you're just old. You just have to kind of put up with it. And it's like, no, that's, you see 70, 80-year-olds running marathons. Well,
Yeah.
what makes them different than me? And it's just really like communication, like Shannon said, like communication, what you've received as far as information through the years of your life and how you've assimilated that. It could really make the difference of how you thrive.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I think looking at your body's blueprint and what you're made of, and then yes, listening to it, because a lot of the epigenetics is really just listening to it, as Shannon said, like trying a food, trying a supplement, and seeing how you work with that. How does that change how you feel?
Yeah.
And do you feel better or not? Or restricting something out of your diet, how does that feel?
Yeah.
And that's where the real work begins. But understanding is kind of the base part of it with the
Yeah.
genetics.
I think you ladies have both each offered more understanding for the audience to, that it's not one size fits all. Just because you did the work doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the same results as the person doing the work next to you, or, you being stuck emotionally. What you know about your body can absolutely help, but the point of self-care is so important, especially to women. We tend to get ourselves into, we wear so many different hats during the day, so we need to self-care, and I'm saying that over and over again so that I might listen to myself, right? Shannon, if you could pick one word that would describe, I'm going to ask you the same question too, Rachel. That would describe your experience of putting it on the line when you said yes to the fourfold formula. What would that word be? Now that it's done and it's published, what is the one word that describes your experience?
Oh, that's hard. I don't do one word very well at all. It was empowering.
Awesome.
So I would say that was empowering.
Would you say that this would lead you to go deeper into your written conversations and information that you would put out to the world? Has this experience served you that well?
Absolutely. And you kind of talked me through some of it. Like, I constantly have people telling me I should be writing books. And it's almost like I didn't feel like I was authentic enough to do that. Like, I'm not an author. That's not what I do. I have conversations.
Honey, you
with
are
people.
the real thing.
And so it was kind of like, and I tell clients this, it's always like when you're moving towards a goal, we always think of the big steps and the big changes instead of the little things. And it's that accumulation of little things. So it was just going out there and like, I did this and I didn't die. And like I've gotten no nasty mail from anybody saying like, you should never put a word on a page again. Like all those crazy, subliminal fears that you create for yourself to keep yourself stuck. Yeah. Like I can make those voices go away because I'm like, you know what? I did this and it was actually pretty cool.
And you get a chance to talk about it. Rachel,
absolutely. Talking I do.
Yeah. So my first word was going to be scary because I think even after I wrote the story, there was a moment where I thought like, and when Peggy's like, oh, it's going to be published now. And I thought, oh my gosh, I got to tell her to take it out. Like, I can't have this go out into the ether, But I echo what Shannon said. No one's like written to me and said like, you shouldn't have done that story. No one's been offended by it, or, you know, anything like that. So, I mean, that's good.
And you also took another step. I'm going to give you a chance to talk about it. You also took another step, and you are now putting together your own book. Yes?
I am. Yeah. So it was funny because when Teresa brought this opportunity to me about getting to the story, I was like, oh, but I'm not a writer. I don't know. You know, that's never been my strong suit. And she's like, no, it'd be easy. I got you. So after I did this, I had the crazy notion that I should do my own compilation book, and with some fellow epigenetic coaches who are dietitians and nutritionists and chiropractors, and you know, there's a list.
All kinds of good stuff. And where can people get in touch? Where can people find out about that? How can they get in touch with you? Give you a website, each of you, because then we got to go, because I'm being prompted. We are at the end of time. So
okay, so yeah, you can my website is drrachelsweet.com. You can reach me at coach@drrachelsweet.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm out there in the ether.
Okay. Shannon, your contact information real quick.
ShannonBarker.com, Shannon@ShannonBarker.com. And if you go to my website, it has all the socials on there that you can click on as well. But
and I'm going to invite you ladies to come back and have more of this conversation, because I think so many of us need to hear it. And I want to thank everybody for listening today. Make sure that the conversations that you're having in your life are making a difference in the lives of those you speak to. Until next time, have a great day.
Tune in next time for Conversations That Make a Difference with host Teresa Velardi every Tuesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern, with live call-in shows every first and third Tuesday on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our producer Rachel and to our station owner Deborah Beauvais, working behind the scenes. Be sure to go to conversationsthatmakeadifference.com for your free gift. Make sure your conversations make a difference.